Have any of you ever gotten into an argument with your spouse?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Guys, you walk into the room, guys or girls, you walk into the room and you do the smallest thing and all of a sudden you hear,
I don't get it. I work hard and I give you everything you want and you...
Or even husbands or wives, wives or husbands, you come into the room and you get chewed out, yelled at for the smallest thing, and then you respond and you say,
that's where I'm struggling at. If you help me out, take this. I need something.
Stay tuned today on this channel and this video as we discuss how to put a stop to the arguments and even stop them and correct them and fix things before they even begin. What is going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Faith Like That, a Christian ministry that is dedicated to helping you live a clean life for Christ and to live that life abundantly. We want you not just to have faith, but to have applied faith working in your life, the kind of faith that can move mountains. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon so you know when our videos are coming out. We're also on Instagram, and we would love to connect with you in both places. So once again today we're talking about relationships, about marriages, about the couples, about that one that you love so much, you're passionate about. But in today's video, we're going to discuss these arguments and fights that you all keep having. On some days, people get in a little attitude, they got a little tude, and they don't know how to control it. And they say things to you or do things to you, and you can see their little attitude. And then it makes you got a little attitude now, and then it makes you lash out irrationally at them and start fussing at them and argue with them, and they don't back down. Now there's a full-blown fight over something as small as you wanted to ask for a sip of my juice.
Yeah, Pastor, sometimes it's ridiculous.
So today I wanted to share with you a strategy for your relationship and your marriage to help you strengthen that thing and make it better than it was before and put a stop to the arguing and the bickering and the things that are keeping you from being in love and having a strong and healthy relationship. Please stay tuned to the end of the video so I can outline that whole strategy for you and give you something that's going to really help. So in this strategy, I don't really have a name for it. I want you to be able to not get it twisted and to be able to see clearly the way things should be with a clear mind and a great positive image of each other. So the don't get it twisted strategy. So often we walk into a room and our spouse, our husband, our wife, boy, girl, whoever you found this video, I wanted to be able to help you. Whether it's a man and a woman, woman and a woman, man and a man, I think if you got a relationship, that relationship should be strengthened and should be healthy. Whether it's a marriage relationship, you're just a couple, you just start dating, you've been dating 10 years, haven't got married yet, you've been dating 1 year, haven't got married yet. Or you're not even married or a couple, you just work together and you want your working relationship to be healthy also. I think the strategy can help. When people start to argue, majority of the time, they're not arguing about the actions that you did or the things that actually happened in the experience. They're arguing about their feelings.
Okay, explain that a little bit.
Sure, let me show you. When somebody walks into a room, say you walked into a room with your husband, you're the husband, you walked into the room with your wife, and when you walked into the room, she asked you, did you take out the trash? And you said, no, I forgot. And then she just flies off the handle and starts to yell at you about how you don't listen to her, you don't care about her, you don't ever keep things clean, and the whole nine, and you're just like, what is going on? How did this reaction come from not taking out the trash? Especially if it has not came from that area before. You forgot before, but it didn't get chewed out this way before. And that's because there's a feeling on the inside that this person is feeling, and there's some self-talk that's going on that's kind of gassing it up. So by the time that your action happens, they perceive the action in a certain way in their feelings, and then their perception of it or understanding of it or the way they made sense of it to themselves has sent them off the edge, and now they're ready to fight. Yeah, that's what happens. It's never the experience or the action that really gets people mad. It's the way they understand the experience. The thought of the intention that you had behind doing or not doing the thing, and the way that that makes them feel, or the way they make themselves feel as they make sense of it and rationalize of it and speak to themselves about it in their mind. Now, scientists say that in your mind, it's almost reactionary, that most of the time this self-talk, this gassing up that we do, that it's done by habit and reaction. And it's really not something that they really intend to do. It just happens.
Well, they need to get that together.
Right. We need to get that together for husbands, wives, or every relationship. We can't have these reactions and these feelings and people getting all caught up in their feelings begin to tear down and erode relationships. Because when you have those feelings and that self-talk and you get gassed up and mad, then you start to say things that you probably wouldn't say when you're not mad. And then that will erode and break and chip away at your relationship until there's almost nothing left, until all you have for each other is negative words and put downs, and then you all of a sudden won't be together or can't be together and be together in a healthy way without fighting. And we don't want that for you. So there are a few things I want to share with you that cause this, or categories we can put this self-talk into that cause you to act this way. So scientists call this cognitive distortion. That means by the time we interpret the action or the behavior, that when it hits our minds, we make sense of it, and we made sense of it the way we saw it and internalized that thing, that it was distorted. We had it twisted. So we don't want to get it twisted. We want to have our minds clear. But the first step to that is being able to recognize when you're getting it twisted. The first cognitive distortion I want to talk to you about is tunnel vision. That means that we are so focused on just one thing that we filter out everything that's outside the blinders. And it's usually the good stuff. So the good things that they do, we all of a sudden forget about, and we only see that they've done this thing. And that's where the statement comes from: you always do this, you never do that, because we have tunnel vision on. The second one is assumed intent. That is the mind reading. That we read into your mind that you don't care about me, you don't like this, you don't want to do it, and you weren't ever even asked if you like this thing, if he really cared about you, or you want to do it, or you never said those things, but there is a belief by the other person that is that way because they have assumed your intent. The third cognitive distortion is magnifying. That's when we exaggerate things to blow them out of proportion, and the smallest thing turns into the biggest issue, life and death. You tried to murder me when you tried to toss me the remote. You threw that remote in my head and then almost took my eye out. The fourth cognitive distortion is labeling. When we label people lazy, stupid, selfish, and these things, and we put that label on them until everything they do, positive or negative, we find a way to label it lazy, selfish, stupid, or one or the other. The fifth cognitive distortion is good or bad labeling, or dichotomizing, as they would call it. That we label everything that's about you good. You're a good man. You're a good woman. Or he's not a good man. She's not a good woman. And everything they do falls under that label. So it's not that it's really good or bad, but my perception of it is because they didn't do what I liked or what I wanted or what I expected, even though a lot of times the expectation isn't communicated, that all of a sudden they're not good, they're bad. The sixth cognitive distortion is fractured logic. That we take the smallest piece of evidence to mean this. That your husband goes to work and he comes back and there's a piece of hair on his jacket right here. Now, he could have went outside and the wind blew and a piece of hair fell right here and it didn't mean anything. Or he could have been on the subway or on a bus, you never know. Maybe at work on the elevator, got crowded, he had to sit next to somebody, hair fell on his jacket, there was nothing about it. But because you saw a piece of hair, now you concocted this whole story and method of how he is cheating on you and he doesn't want you anymore. The seventh cognitive distortion is ideas of control. That in one way or another, we want to control the other person in the relationship and the relationship itself, maybe because we have control issues. So when things don't go right, we feel it is our fault. Or we feel the other person is supposed to be in control and I'm just supposed to show up and let them run everything, and it's supposed to be a cakewalk for me. They're supposed to do the work, so when it doesn't go well, I'm mad at them. The last cognitive distortion that I want to share with you is the "it's not my fault" fallacy. That at the end of the day, everything that's going on is not my problem. It is your fault. It is because of this. The man keeps me down. The job doesn't want to see me succeed. My parents never did anything for me. And it's all everyone else's fault. And every time it comes up, I let it all out. And I just lash out on everybody about how it's their fault and how they did this to me. And the world is against me. With this get it twisted strategy, you can see how people can get things twisted. And you probably know how people get things twisted and have seen it in your relationship. Not saying they do all these things, but you may have at some point seen one of those 8 distortions in your relationship. Or if when you reflect on it, you may be guilty of some of those yourself if you're really being honest with yourself. So with this strategy, what we want to be able to do is first identify which one of these that we are, kind of caught up in. Which distortion is your jam? Is the one that you do, or the ones that you kind of consistently step into and get twisted often in your relationship? So to kind of get rid of the fighting and to use this strategy, the first thing you have to do, again, is know when you're doing these distortions. And we're going to do that by committing to not fighting for 2 weeks. If you can give me 2 weeks of not fighting and all that, even if I'm upset, I'm not going to argue about it. I'm not going to fight about it. That we need to figure out another way to talk about it when we're not angry. And if you don't know how to do that already, please go visit my video about how to talk about your feelings with your partner. It'll help you do that. But for these 2 weeks, if you start to argue, stop in your tracks. Remind your spouse, hey, we promised we weren't going to fight for 2 weeks. Let's table this discussion and we'll talk about it when we can get out of our 2-week promise. So for these 2 weeks, you don't fight. But in the 2 weeks, I want you to keep a journal. And I want you to write down when something happens that you don't like, that you would fight about. And I want you to write down what happened, the feeling that you have, and then I want you to take time to reflect and ask yourself which one of these cognitive distortions could be happening in your life and in your relationship at that point. So for me, it could be for this 2 weeks, I walked in, I was talking to my wife, and she was looking a little sad, and it made me feel bad. It made me feel like a failure. So I would write down that wife feels sad on one part, and then I would say, this is how I feel. I feel like I'm a failure because she feels sad, and I don't know what's going on, and she's not talking to me. It's all my fault. So that fallacy or that distortion that could be the control issue distortion. That for some reason I think everything is on me and I have control of everything, and that's a distortion. It may not be my fault that she's sad. It may be some underlying issue. This may be the day that when she was 3 years old, her first dog died, and she's remembering that because she saw the pictures on Facebook and she's sad. It might not be my fault. But what I really want you to do in the example here is to make sure that you're writing this down so that you can go back and look over it at the end of 2 weeks to say, hey, over 2 weeks, I would have thought about these things or been upset about these things. And if I really examine the thing, there was a distortion there that could have caused this discussion or this fight to go out of control. And there was really nothing to fight about because the event wasn't really the problem, but rather my feelings and the way that I interpreted the event. After those 2 weeks is over and you got a good journal of the feelings that you have, you've taken time to evaluate that journal and actually put distortions that could classify with that feeling or that action, then now at this point we have to make sure we know there's distortions that we kind of like or that kind of come up in our minds. Now we have to train ourselves to be able to prevent those distortions from taking over and being almost a knee-jerk reaction and us getting upset and fighting. So there comes some training now. This is going to be a little bit more difficult, but if you can do it, you can kind of eliminate the arguments and the fighting and that feeling of they don't like you, they don't want you, they're always doing this, or they're bad, I don't have a good wife, or whatever it may be. Then we can kind of cut some of that out and fix that and kind of make our relationship a little bit more healthier by not fighting and not feeling that way. So after the 2-week drill, When you get upset, I need you to ask yourself these questions before you say anything. So your first instinct cannot be to fight. You have to try to understand what's going on before you respond. So even if you are angry, say that you want him to take out the trash. You walked in the house, the trash was still there. He walks in the house, you say, hey, you take out the trash? You know he didn't, so I don't know why you asked him anyway, because you saw it there. But you asked him, you take out the trash? He says no. So the first thing you should say is, so why do you take out the trash? I'm trying to understand, so I understand what's going on for myself and my needs. And see what he says. Then, with what he says, you take that and you ask yourself a couple questions. The first question you need to ask is, what evidence supports my interpretation of what just happened and the feeling that I have? Is the feeling that I have legitimate and warranted based upon the evidence that I can see? Then also, so you don't just kind of go ahead and be a little biased, also ask yourself what evidence is contrary to the evidence that I have that may be evidence for me being able to be angry, and then I'll examine both of those. Then after we ask those two questions, ask yourself, is there an alternative explanation for their behavior? Is there some other reason why they maybe haven't done it? Maybe he didn't take it out. He didn't think to tell you that when you asked him, but he was actually working on something and things got busy and you called him and he got sidetracked because he couldn't multitask well at the time and he just forgot. There's another explanation. Then ask yourself, have you checked your assumptions in your mind reading? Are you mind reading into what he's thinking with his intent? Or did you assume that he thought this way or felt this way because of what he did? So check the assumptions. You don't want to assume anything. You want to know and make a decision and interpret the behavior based upon the evidence and what actually happened. Not the way you feel or the way you gas yourself up on the inside and through self-talk made yourself feel. So then the last question I want you to ask yourself is this always true? So even if after I get through all these things and I feel like he didn't take out that trash because he doesn't like me, he doesn't care about me, he doesn't listen to me, he always does this, and he just wants this house to be a mess. Ask yourself, is this always true about him? Is he always a mess? Does he always appear to not care about you? Does he always appear to not listen to you? And a good portion of the time, that's not going to be true. He listens about some things, he gets some things right. It's not all bad, so it's not always true. So again, maybe this is a feeling that I'm welling up on the inside and I'm convincing myself to feel, and I don't really have a legitimate reason to feel that way, and it's really not valid. I may feel that way, but it's because of different self-talk and things that happen on the inside in my mind, and I can control those so this doesn't turn into a fight. So take the time to do these exercises and try this strategy in your relationship, especially if there's some fighting going on and you don't like it and it's starting to escalate and get out of control. This is a more advanced strategy, and it's going to take you really having some discipline and control of yourself to decide that you're not going to fight about it until you can get through those 2 weeks and examine yourself and evaluate some of your feelings, and then ask yourself those questions to be able to determine, should I really be feeling this way, or is this something that I've convinced myself to feel and I can adjust and regulate myself? Now, this is a strategy you could do by yourself, but I encourage you to speak with your partner, to speak with your spouse, to make sure that they're doing this with you and they're aware that you're doing this so they can participate, so they won't try to fight with you or pick fights with you during this time, and you all can work on this together to strengthen the relationship from both sides, not just yours. But I do want to tell you that I don't want you to tell them that, hey, you need to do this because you have some cognitive distortions that you keep getting caught up in and it's pulling us down. Yeah, don't use this to fight with anybody or put anybody down. Only be positive with it. Say, hey, I heard about the strategy that I want us to try because I kind of feel like we have been fighting a little bit lately and I don't really like the feeling I get when we fight or even when it's over. I want us to be closer. So look, can we try the strategy together? Thank you for spending time with me today. Again, as I'm kind of sweating and talking loud on YouTube, this is Texas, it is hot, and I am loud and I keep moving. But I am so excited that you decided to spend some time with me today and learn about another strategy to strengthen your relationship. Please, if you had not done so already, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon. If you're still here, I know you liked it. Hit that like button, drop us some comments. We do read those comments, and we also would love to connect with you on Instagram. Again, thank you for spending that time, and until next time, you be safe. We'll see you around.